Welcome to Pop Culture Retro, which was recently voted the 15th best podcast by the residents of Golden Years Retirement Community in Boca Raton, Florida. Each show will revisit some of your favorite pop culture memories with insider and outsider perspectives. Now, please help me welcome your hosts, Moosie Drier and Jonathan Rosen.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Pop Culture Retro. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Moosie Drier. And today we are thrilled to welcome someone who was a big part of my childhood, as well as many other people's. He had roles in such beloved classics as Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, Mary Hartman, Freaky Friday, as well as playing the lead on a Saturday morning staple, Richie Rich, among many, many others. He appeared in 4 different after-school specials. Please help us welcome Marcus Issoglio, better known as Sparky Marcus. Marcus, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, you've had such a great career, and we have a lot to cover. But to start with, I was wondering, I didn't want to ask beforehand, how did you and Moosie meet?
At work. Where else, right? It was you and I talked about this when we met for dinner that time years ago. You remembered the commercial. It was a toothpaste commercial. And the only reason I remember is because I was so young. I was maybe 6 or 7 years old. And they let us have the little cups that we were using. They had these little plastic handled cups that had a character on it. I don't remember what the character was, but I had mine until it cracked.
Well, we're off to a shaky start because you're reminding me that you're younger than me, Marcus. I did a couple of toothpaste commercials. Gleam, is that a toothpaste anymore?
Not anymore.
I remember that one.
I feel like I did that. But also, perhaps, was it like a mouthwash, like a scope with Disney characters on it?
That's what it was. Maybe that's what it was. Okay.
Yes,
it had
Thumper. And it was you and I, and it was Brad Savage also was in that.
I have to ask, and I know you've been asked this 1,000 times, but I have to ask for this. Where did the name Sparky come from?
It was the 60s, man. Yeah, anything could go. So my dad freaked out at the sight of blood. He couldn't handle it. So I was a planned C-section. He couldn't drive to the hospital because he was freaking out so bad. So my mom drove, and they wheel her away, and they stuffed my dad in the smoking room with all the other smoking dads. And they were arguing over what to name me. Marcus Aurelius Issoglio was the leading contender, and my mom was just throwing her hands up going, whatever, at this point. So when the nurse handed me to my mother, she didn't say, here's a little sweetie or here's a little baby. She said, here's a little Sparky. And my mom thought, well, that could be worse. So she thought my dad named me that. So when my mom saw my dad, she said, oh, did you see Sparky? And he said, oh, yes. Oh, he's beautiful. Yes, he's perfect. So both of them thought the other one named me. So that was my nickname that I've had my entire life.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's it. It was, like I said, it was the 60s. Anything, it could have gone worse. Twisted Flower Moon or something, I don't know.
Yeah. I have a rule, and normally when Jonathan said, what about Sparky Marcus? I'm like, ex-child actors with unusual names, no. But with you were everywhere. I mean, you turn the TV on, or movies. Freaky Friday. I love Freaky Friday. We'll get to that.
My memories are working a lot. But I never got that thing. I never got the hook, like that one episode of one show or that one series or that one movie, that you can hang on to. And I mean, it's so iconic. Everybody remembers. I just worked a lot. I never really had that hook that a lot of guys get. Yeah.
But think about the variety of people you worked with and the jobs that you did. And everything from, what's that? Go ahead.
I said, my wife wants to play this game where we take a wall of the house and stick a pin in the middle, and that's me, right? And then we played the 6 degrees game. I figured I got to Kevin Bacon in 2 degrees, right? Instead of 6. So it's like we're watching. I made it to Star Wars in like 4 and Harry Potter in like 5. We play this game. It's like, oh, he worked with him and he worked with her, and then she did that, and then there's me. Yeah. So she envisions this big old wall that looks like a spider web of all this, where my connections are.
Who's the one between you and Kevin Bacon?
Mark McClure. I worked with him on Freaky Friday, and he was on Apollo 13.
No.
So, well, you and I probably have 1 degree.
We worked together. Yeah, I know.
Many times. Well, we did work together, but I mean, I I did one thing for Sid and Marty Krofft. I'm wondering what your experience was with Sigmund and the Sea Monsters, because I went down to, I want to say it was in Van Nuys. It was a warehouse, and I think it was just a wardrobe fitting, but I happened to see in this warehouse covered in clear plastic, like there's HR Puffin stuff, and there's, like the actual costume.
Wardrobe makers and animators, all those people were off the 405 in Van Nuys.
Yeah, Van Nuys, yeah.
And then the studios were the Gower Studios off of Santa Monica in Hollywood. And there used to be this little corner deli place that we used to go grab lunch every day. So here's the funny part. I did the Hollywood show this weekend. It's an autograph show.
I'm going to ask about that.
Never done an autograph show in my life. It was my first one. And they called me up and said they're doing a Sid Marty Krofft reunion. So Johnny Whitaker's going to be there. Scott Colden's going to be there. Sid's going to be there. The Slee Stacks are going to be there. Kathy Coleman, Wesley Ure. So they have this whole row of the world of Sid and Marty Krofft, right? So we started talking a lot about what I remembered from the show, because I was only 7 when I filmed that. And the call went out for somebody older than me, and for some reason I got the job. So here's what I remember, and I hope this speaks to you too, Moosie. That show, working on that show, set the standard for me as far as being received by a crew and a cast on a stage. This was my first one. I'd done commercials and stuff before, and commercials are very high detail. We got a limited amount of time. We're going to do this 1,000 times to make sure we get it right. When you're doing episodic television, it's like, okay, we got a lot of area to cover. They were nice to me. They were inclusive to me. They treated me well, and it doesn't always work that way when you're a kid, especially the only kid in the cast. The way I explained it to people at the show were, they either ignore you because kids are supposed to show up, know their lines, hit their mark, and shut up. They're nice to you, which is always a bonus, or they can be flat out mean. Flat out anti-child. I don't want to be anywhere here. Get the child wrangler. Get them out of here. That's what it was like, and they were wonderful to me.
Well, yeah, that's. I love hearing that. I love that. Yeah, because
I only know that now. You know what I mean? At the time, I didn't know it, but I know it now.
Well, the entire production company their demographic was children, so I mean, it makes sense. Like, be good to the kids,
Yeah.
So,
well, I met Will and Holly for the first time, Kathy Coleman and Wesley Ure, and I was telling them I used to sneak off the set to go over to their set and watch them film, because I loved it so much. It was like my favorite show at the time.
Yeah,
but,
I'm curious. Go ahead.
So, I'm just curious, though, since you had not done that. I mean, you were so young. Also, did you know? Had you been familiar with Johnny Whitaker then? Because he had been so many things beforehand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I was familiar with Johnny Whitaker. Heck yeah. In fact, I bought his record. He had a record out at the time.
I remember.
And I took it to the set, and he autographed it for me. And I had everybody else who was working there at the time pretty much autograph it for me. I had seen, and I'm 90% sure Tom Sawyer was out before Sigmund.
I believe so.
It's around, at least it's neck and neck.
I think it was 73, Tom Sawyer. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and I was the second. I only did 6 episodes of Sigmund, and it was the second half of the second season with Rip Taylor. Both of our characters were on the show at the same time.
Nice. I always admired Johnny. Like, there was Tom Sawyer, but also he did a film called Napoleon and Samantha. Do you guys remember that?
I don't.
Yeah. He was just a good actor. And of course, family affair, but he did.
And the Russians are coming.
What's that?
The Russians are coming.
I didn't realize he was in that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, he was one of those I really looked up to.
He was so grounded and level-headed at the time.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those things I only know in retrospect. I didn't appreciate it maybe at the time when I was there. But he and Scott were both just so grounded and so professional.
But how lucky is that? A lot of people, really pull out the stigma for, ex-child actors, and yeah, I have a belief that, sure, some of our friends, who are child actors or have been in trouble, but also know a lot of people in the world that have nothing to do with the business, and they also had some issues, and it just didn't make the paper, because they weren't, I
know, yeah. It's reflective of the culture that we're all in.
What was it like for you? I mean, you were so young. What was it like for you to see yourself on TV in a series for the first time? What do you remember
I'll
that?
tell you. That I will say that probably episode 1 that I was in at Sigmund and the Sea Monsters is the last thing I ever watched myself on.
Really?
I don't do well. I pick myself apart. And there were times, I was 7. So I'm doing this, looking at the camera, when you're not supposed to kind of thing. I could see myself doing it. I'm like, oh man, my mom told me not to do that. Oops. So fast forward till I was maybe 11. I did an episode of WKRP in Cincinnati.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually watched that one when it was on primetime, when it was on the first time. And I liked that episode. I thought I did okay. I mean, I didn't pick it apart too much. But otherwise, I'm a back row kind of guy. I am not a front row kind of guy. I do not like to watch myself. I put my stuff, when I turned 18 and left the business, I didn't talk about it for years. Years and years and years. Oops,
right.
Sorry.
Well, not to take credit away from your professionalism, but when you're doing WKRP in Cincinnati, you can look at the camera lens like you're not supposed to, or you can look at Lonnie Anderson. So I think what happened was
she was so nice.
Isn't she
so nice? And I had done an episode of the Bob Newhart show where she played my mom, right?
Oh.
So I had known her before she started doing WKRP, and she was absolutely wonderful to me.
Yeah, she's
very
a sweetheart.
kind lady.
Went to school with her daughter Deidre, and we used to go hang out at her pool in the back,
Nice.
And,
torture.
She would come out and see if we needed anything, and just like her whole family
right
was like a cold pitcher of milk and apple pie. You know what I mean? They were just such a sweet, wholesome, comfortable family. You mentioned the Bob Newhart show. What was your experience on that? And what did you play?
So Arthur Carlson, apparently, Lonnie Anderson hit him with a paternity suit. Moi, right?
Okay.
So he had us, they costumed us as little mini-me, same outfits kind of thing. So here's my takeaway from the Bob Newhart show, all right? I generally wasn't the kind of guy that hung out with the cast. I hung out with the crew. And particularly for some reason, I always felt I gravitated towards sound guys. I could see myself being a sound guy, after, you grow out of being a child. So I'm sitting there BSing with the sound guy on a break. And here comes a dude. It's like they knew each other. And we're on the set of 20th, okay, on the lot. And he starts talking to the sound guy. So I'm just sitting there chilling. I was 10, maybe 11. And he goes, there's a movie coming out this summer. You're going to like it. Let me go grab some. Dude runs out, comes back with a poster and a T-shirt. It was George Lucas. That was a Star Wars lobby poster and a T-shirt I've never seen anywhere else. And when I found a still from when I was on there that was on eBay, and the movie, we were out in the front of a facade of a movie theater. The Star Wars lobby poster was being displayed. It's like they were doing product placement or something, right? Sure enough, man, had my poster on my wall for years. Yeah, coolest thing ever. It's all about timing, being in the right place at the right time.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody on that cast, again, was wonderful to me. And you're the only kid. And, shut up, know your lines, hit your mark, follow direction, and work when we need you and get lost when we don't. It wasn't like that there, and that was generally, I would say, 70% of most jobs for me when I was young were, not so inclusive. And then I worked with people that flat out didn't like kids.
Oh yeah. I have that same experience. No matter what you did, they just
didn't matter. So I felt the same way about WKRP the way that you did, just because I think I was a little older by the time I did it, and I'd watched enough episodes of WKRP to love the show. And it's like everybody on that cast met my imaginary 11-year-old, 12-year-old expectation of what I was walking into. So it worked for me. They were nice from the minute I hit the door. They actually invited me to the wrap party when the second season wrapped. I was the first season. I think I was the first season. Anyway, when my season wrapped, they invited me to the wrap party, which is, kind of an honor.
That's fantastic. Yeah, they didn't always do that with people who were not regulars.
The wrap party was a private party. Absolutely true.
Right. So let me ask you this. So you did a show, you did Mary Hartman. And we had a couple people, I don't know if they've aired yet. One of them has from that
Claudia
show.
Lamb, that's right.
Yeah, Claudia Lamb. What What was your experience with that show? It was so unusual and groundbreaking at the time.
It wasn't okay. Norman Lear, great guy, liked him a lot. I always had access. Whenever I was around his office, I'd stop by and say hi, and he always had time for me, a minute or two. You know, what I remember the most about that show was driving home after a day of work and looking at the next day's dialogue, and it was pages. It was 3 or 4 solid pages of dialogue that I had to memorize that night, kind of thing. And working with my mom, to get those lines down. Because even the little clip I saw doing one of the sermon things that my character did, I'm just regurgitating words, man.
Yeah.
It's like there was no nuance in there. It's like, oh, I wish I could do that again and make it actually, better.
Yeah.
But
Well,
at the time, when you're an 8-year-old, 7-year-old spitting that stuff out, that was a lot of work for anybody.
Look how spoiled you are. Like two of your earliest jobs were the Krofts and Norman Lear.
Yeah, and I worked with Norman Lear on another show that didn't make it past the maybe 7th episode, Nancy Walker show.
Yeah, we're gonna ask about that too.
Yeah, they killed me off on Mary Hartman to move me over there. And one thing I'll say is I did have, as far as I know, the most epic television death scene, of anybody, especially anybody, under 18.
Yeah. But did you get the back to Mary Hartman?
Mhm.
I see how I remember that when there's a lot of dialogue, you're like, gotta remember that's one thing. But as far as the humor goes and what they were saying and the story, like, did you get it at the time?
If correct me if I'm wrong, it aired at like 11 o'clock, didn't it? Like PM when it was on.
Yeah, it was an 11 p.m. show.
Yeah, I wasn't up for that. So I never really saw an episode of it and even when the couple times I watched it, it was years and years later after it was recorded, kind of a thing. I never saw it as it was aired. I did not get the humor at all.
Right.
I tried my best to just do my thing.
Well, it wasn't a universal show. It's not like watching a WKRP in Cincinnati where kids, adults all laugh and get it. Yeah. No, that one was not geared towards kids.
Well, I remember my mom trying to tell me, she goes, you know what a soap opera is, right? I go, yeah, I General Hospital. Yeah, I get it. And she goes, it's a takeoff on a soap opera. Just think of it that way. They're trying to make fun of soap operas.
Yeah.
And oh, okay. That was my entire grasp.
But it could only work if you don't think of it as a takeoff. You need to play it as a soap opera. You need to play it straight.
Yeah, you got to play it straight. Yeah, I get it. But that's what I did.
Were you upset when you were written out? I mean, even though they told you the reason, were you upset about things?
No, man, because jobs come and jobs go, baby. You get used to that, early on. I don't know about you, Moosie, but, you go on 50 interviews to get one job, So you're out there constantly putting yourself, out there. And when one job closes, there's another one hopefully going to open up.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was just thinking about how when you were talking about Norman Lear, that you did the Nancy Walker show. I did one Norman Lear show, which also was short-lived. Hot L Baltimore was taken from it was a play, but the E is burnt out on the hotel. Hot L.
Hot L.
Yeah, and a lot of great people. Oh gosh, what's his name from? Babe, James
Cromwell.
Yeah.
I worked with him a bunch of times.
What a sweet man. I probably auditioned for the Nancy Walker show, and you probably auditioned for the Hot L Baltimore, and that's just kind of how it went. Like,
it is.
And when you and I didn't get something, it was Brad Savage or Robbie Wrist or Matt Laberto or one of these.
I agree. I didn't get as competitive as others, but I was pressured kind of on the other end. Because we'd head to an interview, and my mom, before we'd go inside, is like, "Hey, things are really tight right now. We could really, really use this. We really need it. So you need to knock this one out of the park because family." And I'd be like, "Okay, Mom, I got it, no problem."
Right.
So there was Claudia and I have a lot in common. Jonathan, did you guys both interview her or just one?
No, that was with the great Ike Eisenman.
Ah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, Claudia mentioned a lot of that because Claudia came on right around the time the Nickelodeon special aired.
Oh boy, Yeah.
Right. So she had a lot to say about it. Yes.
Yeah, and I feel her on that one.
Yeah.
Our moms knew each other. Her mom is the reason I started working. Her mom got my mom. Her mom took pictures of me, like litho type pictures. I interviewed with a couple of agents that got picked up by Ann Wright, was my first agent. And then moved to Dorothy Day Otis after that. And then after that was Mary Grady for the next 15 years, right? 13 years.
Yeah.
So Claudia's mom is the reason I ever started working. And, Claudia and I have talked about what those motivations were. And it wasn't to make my life better.
Yeah. It's so funny to hear those names. There was only like 5 agents. There was
It's
Dorothy
for
Day
kids,
Otis,
yeah. There was only like 5 kid agents.
Jack Wormser and Herb
Wormser.
Hannon. So let me ask you something. So you did what a great movie, Freaky Friday. It's a Disney movie, right?
Another great cast. I was lucky.
Yeah. Whatever happened to Jodie Foster? No.
Obscurity. She just fell into obscurity.
I hate those sad former child actor stories. Hope she's okay. What was that like? And did you realize, were you a Disney movie fan? And
yeah.
How was that experience?
Okay. Yeah. Yes, I was. I didn't get exposed to a lot of Disney movies, but I was familiar with at least a few of them. And okay, so there's one scene where we're making chocolate mousse and the chocolate mousse sprays all over me, right? So I'm all covered in chocolate. Oh, they covered me in chocolate, all right. But it took 2 days, a day and a half to film that sequence. And what none of us realized is when chocolate dries, it actually like tears your hair out.
Oh, wow.
So my dressing room was one of those usual plywood green things. It looks like 4 walls and a peach roof kind of thing. No, there was no plumbing, so I had no shower. So I was, when I got cut loose for the day, it was like, okay, you got to drive home before you could get, cleaned up. And Barbara Harris actually let me use her dressing room so that I could use her shower to get cleaned up before I had to drive home. There was a very, I don't want to go as far as saying familial type thing going on, but everybody was always very compassionate and concerned with each other. We had a great crew. We just had a great cast. We had the right people in the right place. John Astin. If you've ever worked John Astin, it's like your dream dad. The guy was so nice. Mark McClure, totally nice. And I was jealous as hell because he was 18 and didn't have to sit in school for 3 whole hours, Jodie Foster, I describe her as classy before I knew what classy was. And that's who she was. She was very nice to me, just very classy. Barbara Harris was the same way. The director, Gary Nelson, nice guy. Very cool, very patient working with me.
I wanted to ask something about Jodie Foster that you just brought up, because you brought up Star Wars before. The stories go that she was cast as Princess Leia.
I've heard that.
Yeah. Oh, so you did. I wanted to know if that was mentioned at all.
No, I've heard that, but I heard the filming schedule. She was conflicted with something. At least that's the way the legend goes.
That's funny. So she wasn't mentioned then, though.
No. We didn't talk shop. He just handed me a poster and a T-shirt and said, "You're gonna love this movie, kid." He was right. I probably saw it 500 times.
Too bad Jodie Foster wasn't in it. Then the movie really would have been successful.
Yeah,
I do want to ask about one other a small role that you had, but I love these people. You were in Viva Knievel.
So God.
You get a chance to meet Evel Knievel.
That is the second worst movie ever made in the history of movies.
But he's
I was
such
in the first worst and the second worst. Now,
did you get to interact with Evel Knievel and Gene Kelly?
Oh yeah. So like the whole thing is like there's this orphanage with like a dozen kids, right? Right. Okay. So he was over the top cool. Like last day of filming, he gave us each an Evel Knievel bicycle, and autographed Evel Knievel record, and a bunch of Evel Knievel toys. I mean, you remember the crank up motorcycle thing that used to take off? Got that. He totally handed over $500 at the time in merch to every kid on that show.
Wow.
And autographed everything he could possibly autograph. And you know how he signed his stuff? Dear Sparky, happy landings, Evel Knievel.
Oh, that's awesome.
Dude, he was cool beyond cool.
Yeah.
That movie sucked, though.
What about Gene Kelly? Did you interact with Gene Kelly at all?
I don't recall. I don't think I was on the stage the same time he was.
Okay.
But the worst movie ever made was Goldie and the Boxer Go to Hollywood. Okay. I was on that too. Okay, and there was a lot of Hollywood royalty on that stage that I did get to work with. The names are escaping me right now, but I do remember looking around the room at George Gobel. I want to say George Gobel. I mean, some really old school Hollywood actors were in that movie, and oh my God, horrific. But
so what about?
Well, yeah, it was Jack Gilford and Stubby K.
Yeah, it's Stubby K. Yeah,
and they're all OJ.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, a gig's a gig, and you get paid.
Marcus, what about you? Talk about projects you think were not great.
Yeah,
in your words, the worst thing ever made.
Ever made.
I have a couple cringeworthy after school
no way,
specials.
Dude, no way. You are always on top.
Oh, I appreciate that. The check is on its way. So what about the after school specials? I did some that I'm really proud of, and I did some that I'm like, I can never ever watch. But you did some great ones, and you worked with Christy McNichol. Was it Pinballs or something?
Yeah.
But what was that like? What was it like working with? What was your favorite one?
Okay, I'm gonna go with. It was called Very Good Friends at the time, but I think they changed the name to Beat the Turtle Drum or something, or vice versa, with Melissa Sue Anderson and Katie Kurtzman. Okay, so remember, me and Katie had dinner that night. So the whole thing is Katie's up in this tree and she falls out of the tree and dies. And so her sister, who's Melissa Sue Anderson, is dealing with death and basically teaching kids how to handle stuff like that. So we're filming this scene, which is supposed to be like right after the funeral or whatever. We're sitting on the curb and we're absolutely bawling, getting literally real crying, getting through the dialogue. And then they'd go, cut. And then we'd start laughing hysterically because, oh my God, they're so emotional, so high. And then they're like, okay, we're going to do it again. And then we'd start the dialogue again and start bawling all over again. And it was like, boom, cry, boom, laugh. It was like this whole thing. But we had that synchronicity between the two of us when you're feeding off each other and it's in a positive way and you're doing your thing and it's all great. I really enjoyed that. I like the feeling that it's like doing a live show without it being a live show, where you really draw from the audience, that energy that you get. It was like that, and that's one of the reasons I liked that particular one. Pinballs was great. Chrissy McNichol and Johnny Duran, they were great. I had a good time.
What about Duffy Moon with Ike Eisen?
Duffy Moon. That was, I don't think I was in more than one or two scenes of that one. And I remember it vaguely. So I don't remember a lot of details. That was really one of the first things I did. And the one before that, the skating rink, was filmed out for this whatever little 30-second scene of me crying as the main character as a child, was filmed out in Hemet, like 2 hours from LA. And at night, for literally 15 minutes, we were done shooting.
I want to ask you. You mentioned your mom already. How things were at home. Like she put the pressure on you. I'm always curious to know. I've asked many child stars this. Porn child stars. How is it in school with going to school? Did you get a lot of I guess crap from friends or people in school, jealousy?
I was not the cool kid. All right. Again, I'm a back row kind of guy. I don't like attention. I didn't like attention back then. And people, I think, automatically assume if you're working that you must like attention. Okay, that's a fair enough. I can cut people slack on that one. I had a group of 3 or 4 really tight friends that we were friends all through high school and are still friends now. And there was a group of 3 or 4 that absolutely tortured me on a daily basis. And this was back when boys would be boys. I'd go crying to the teacher, hey, you're making fun of me. And they're like, suck it up, go back, play Foursquare. Things were handled differently back then. In retrospect, I'm kind of surprised I didn't go postal one day because it was bad. I hated going to school. I almost liked to have school on the set, not only because it was only 3 hours, but I didn't have anybody hassling me. And it wasn't just the kids. It was a teacher also. So here's the story. Anybody who knows me, my 7th grade math teacher, I'm not going to name his name because he's not dead yet. I left to go do the first worst movie ever done. And I was off for like 6-8 weeks. So I don't know if Moosie, you had this issue. So you get a job. My mom would call the school and say, Mark's going to be out of school for the next 6 to 8 weeks on a project. We're going to be picking up his schoolwork every week. And the office would say, okay, because, I wasn't the only kid working. There was a couple. So I go to pick up my work, and there's no math. And the next week, there's no math. So the whole point, there's no math. Well, his rule was when you've been out sick, you get 48 hours to catch up, and that's all you get, right? So now I'm failing this class, right? So he's sitting us alphabetically, and I'm sitting behind a girl whose last name was H-Y, and I'm I-S, so I'm right behind her. So he's going through roll, and he skips me. And I, raise my hand. I'm like, Mister, you skipped me. And he did one of these things. Oh, are you here? And I said, yeah, I'm here. And he goes, they tell me you're this big actor guy, but I haven't seen you in anything. Are you really working when you're off, or are you just doing something else? And I didn't know what to say, but I was a smart aleck, and I'm not gonna. I always got the you're a pretty small guy for such a big mouth, And I popped off. Well, let's compare W-2s at the end of the year and see who wins.
Right.
Dude never talked to me again.
Oh wow! Oh, you weren't just thinking that. You said.
Oh, I said it. And I didn't even know what a W-2 was. All I know is that we got a bunch of them at the end of the year.
Right.
I didn't even know. I didn't realize I smacked that dude.
Yeah. I'd just like to say that right now, 2024, and you're well aware of that your 7th grade math teacher is still alive. It makes me think you're keeping an eye. I'm very alarmed by this. But...
A friend of mine from high school's daughter was recently in his class.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just teasing with you, but
I'm not saying I don't keep tabs.
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not saying that. No.
Yeah.
Did you get to do what you wanted to on the outside? You were always working. I mean, did you have any activities that
No.
you were able? No,
no little league, no sport. I tried to join different sports teams when I was in high school, and I kept missing stuff because I had to work. So no, that didn't. I don't know if Moosie's experience was any different than mine, but yeah, I wanted to play little league. I wanted to be in Cub Scouts. I wanted to do that stuff, but yeah, I had no time. No time because after school they call them auditions now, or they're interviews to me. I'm sorry. Sometimes we'd hit 2, 3, even up to 5 interviews after school between 3:30 and 6:30, trying to get a job. So my mom, she knew every back road everywhere to get anywhere we needed to be. She knew how to get around traffic. She was like, crazy. I used to call her the little old lady from Pasadena. She drove she was crazy.
Yeah. Marcus, apart from threatening 7th grade math teacher, we have so much in common. I wanted to play Little League so bad.
Yeah.
So bad, and practices were after school, but no auditions.
Nope.
Going over Laurel Canyon in traffic was after school for me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I feel you. There's like 4 canyons, and how crazy, actually. I'm just thinking there wasn't Waze or any kind of navigation back then.
No. Fountain Avenue to Western to get up to Los Feliz, then down to the 5 and hop on the 110 to get back home. Yeah. That skit from Saturday Night Live. I love you so much. I took the 405 to the 10 to the 210 to the 810. Blah, blah, blah. It's absolutely true. That's how we talk.
Yeah. The Californians.
I just want to ask you about, you mentioned Nancy Walker, that you were on that show. So what was it like, Nancy Walker and William Daniels? I mean, great cast, though.
Yeah, William Daniels was very nice to me. Nancy Walker did not like the kids.
Oh, really?
Wouldn't talk to me, wouldn't acknowledge me. The only interaction we had is if we had a scene together.
Oh, it's cool.
Yeah, I know. It was one of those things. Ann Archer was on there. She was very nice to me. William Daniels was great. And he played her husband, I think. Because I had 3 different guys play my dad, but trying to get the pilot out. Ronnie Shell, Conrad Bain, I think, and Jamie Cromwell at one point, I think. There were 3 different guys. I don't know who even got the job. I don't remember.
Wow. Well, what about Grandpa Goes to Washington with Jack Albertson?
Totally cool.
Larry
cool. Larry Linville, totally cool. Suzanne Langdon, totally cool. Michelle Tobin, who played my sister, we didn't have a lot of interaction. I don't recall. Why are you laughing?
Oh, I'm not laughing. I'm just these names. Michelle Tobin, Missy Tobin is what we would call her. My sister was good friends with her. She was sweet. Yeah. I'm like, Michelle Tobin. Wow.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Jack Albertson was kind of like a, because I also did something with him. He was just a sweet grandpa. I felt like I was gonna, sit next to him and enjoy a Werther's original and hear a story about back in his day, and I did. Yeah. So that's cool. So that was a good experience.
Hmm. And I don't know. Do you remember Portia Adams, the most famous of all the studio teachers?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
I was lucky. Most of the series that I got on, I was able to have her as our teacher until I lost her to the Love Boat for 5 years, and then that was that.
That darn Jill
I know.
Whelan.
I'm going on the Love Boat, honey. Sorry, but I still kept in touch with her after I left the business. She was really good to me, and she took really good care of us. When I did the series Bad News Bears, okay, craft service, my favorite guy on the set, right? Donuts, soda, whatever. So imagine there were 8 or 10 of us kids and plus 6 or 7 extras pretty much on any given day and devouring all this high sugar soda, juice and stuff. Man, she put a stop to that quick, fast, and in a hurry. The next thing I know, there's no more donuts. It's apple slices and stuff like that. I'm just like, what happened to my donuts, man? So she took good care of us. She was a sharp cookie.
Yeah. Well, you get Sparky Marcus, Corey Feldman, Rad Daly all together with a bunch of sugar.
Right.
Well, I actually watched Bad News Bears. I enjoyed that show. So yeah, I remember watching it because I was a fan of the movie. Had you seen the movie, or were you too young for it when it came out?
No, I saw the original. I never laughed so hard in my life with all that humor. So yeah,
oh my gosh!
I don't think it would fly. I mean, obviously,
no way.
I don't think that exact movie, the way it's written and filmed, would fly today. But at the time, I thought it was hysterical.
That's one of the movies. That was one of my favorite movies because I love baseball. And what was going on between Walter Matthau and Tatum O'Neal? They were so good in that movie. I know it's like, hey, a bunch of kids playing baseball, like a fun little ha-ha comedy, but there was some real stuff going on. They were so good. And Jackie Earl Haley Jr., come on. Everybody in that movie, just the whole film just worked. I can't say much for Breaking Training, which was a sequel, and I think they had one in Japan.
I got offered a role for the Japan one, but I had another project. I went to the interview process for that. And no, they did not have us play baseball.
Well, I want to talk about the cast. I mean, Moosie mentioned some of them, but Jack Warden, who I love, Catherine Hicks, and a few other big child actors at the time.
I had such a crush on her. Oh my God, she was so gorgeous. Well,
there was Corey Feldman, Mino Palus, who we've had on, also Christoph St. John, Billy Jane. So, what are some of your memories of working on the show and with the cast?
My mom. Okay, so this kind of leads into a whole different discussion about the dynamic with my mother and I. My mom knew I was the family commodity and protected me fiercely. So on a Friday night at the end of shooting, some of those guys are all going skating on Santa Monica not Santa Monica, La Cienega at Flips, if you remember that, Moosie, back in the day.
Flippers,
yeah, the roller rink. They're all going to hang out and go eat hot dogs and pizza and do the thing. And I'm like, can I go? And she's like, oh, hell no, you're going home. And no, we don't hang out. People were crashing at each other's house for the weekends and stuff. That I was never allowed to do that. So my mom kept a real tight rein on me. Kids are kids. You put 10 kids in one room for X amount of time, there's going to be conflict. And I remember there were, arguments and spats between everybody at some point or another. But I will say this. We were professional enough at 10, 11, 12 years old to get to work when it's time to work. I mean, all that other stuff gets pushed off, whatever. So-and-so's mad at so-and-so today for whatever reason, fine. But we had to work and we knew it.
There were some sacrifices you make as a child actor, like the baseball and going to flippers to roller skate and all that stuff. Yeah. But you also, you got to do the movie Goldie and the Boxer Goes to Hollywood.
#1 worst movie ever made.
Jack Guilford and Stubby K.
#1 worst movie ever made. Everybody was really nice to me again on that set. Everybody worked well together. Melissa Michelson, great lady. Yeah, Timothy Gibbs now, I guess.
Tim and Dave Gibbs. Gosh, I haven't heard these names in quite a while.
Right.
Yeah.
So, we got along fine and we had a good time. And, you don't know it's horrible until you go see it. or somebody sees it and goes, "Whoa, dude." But yeah, I actually sat through that one partially.
You know
And
what's crazy about what you just said is, yes, there are projects that just don't work. And that's being nice. You're like,
but
you're
you
just must be
don't know it
honest. You're like,
until
yeah,
it's
the worst thing ever made. Well,
don't
crap.
know till it's screened though.
Right. But I've noticed throughout my life, some people have a loose relationship with reality, and they want something that they're in to be so. They want it to be good so bad that they actually end up believing it, and it's not their fault, but it's horrible. I mean, it's just terrible. I did it. I'm just as guilty, but like, it's good to see that you weren't, you didn't have those goggles on of, just delusion. If
I've
it
always
doesn't
been
work, it doesn't work.
I'm a discerning person, and I also think it has a lot to do with who you have around you. And if you got somebody who's just going, "Man, Sparky, everything's great. You were great. Those guys don't know what they're talking about. You were fine. It was the best thing ever. Let's move on to the next project. You're going to be great in that." Well, I didn't have those people around me. I had very, I don't want to call them grounded because my parents were kind of crazy, but they were realists. They were very realistic. They were always like about the next job. We're done with that one. It's behind us now. On to the next one.
Did you just go talk? Because that's what you really went into voiceover more than in front of the camera. I mean,
So,
what
so
prompted
there's
that? For you?
I had a moment. Okay, so when I was in sixth grade is when we started recording Richie Rich for the first season.
Mhm.
So I want to say I was doing Richie Rich through about ninth grade, right? So I got to the point working at Hanna-Barbera where I didn't have to audition anymore. My agent would call and say, "Hey, you picked up another cartoon. It's going to start recording in 10 days, da 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 da." And, okay, fine. Yeah. So I was able to do multiple cartoons. Again, I didn't realize how great I had it at the time. When I was in the end of eighth grade, beginning of ninth grade, I had an injury on the set. And I'm still, when I think about it, it still pisses me off because they had pyrotechnics and stuff going on and nobody told me. No
Oh my
one told
God.
me. The studio teacher didn't know. And if the studio teacher doesn't know, that's a felony because she's your social worker. And it's like, if they didn't fully disclose what's going on, somebody's going to get in trouble. So the long and the short of it was, I did an episode of Trapper John MD where, for the first time and only time in my life, I got to play older instead of younger because the character was supposed to have some sort of stunted growth syndrome. So he's supposed to look 14 when he was really 17. So it's like, oh, sweet, I get to play a 17-year-old. Anyway, I'm supposed to be doing pull-ups on this external piping, right? Kind of thing. And we're filming, and I'm supposed to let go and fall on these cardboard boxes and pads, and everything's fine. Okay, great. It's a doctor show. You got to get in the hospital, right? So I look down and we're filming this, and there's a guy with 2 copper wires looking at me like this. I'm like, what the hell is that about? Well, from what I gather, just releasing this pipe that's supposed to fall and have me break my spleen or whatever looked better if it blew up instead of just kind of fell. So they blew it up and didn't tell me, and I wound up with 24 stitches in my head.
Holy crap.
Right here.
Holy.
Yeah. Instead of a Harry Potter Z, I got a Sparky Y. I had a dog. Anyway,
My gosh.
so I am freaking out. There is blood everywhere. I am losing my stuff. And the stunt coordinator was your average 6'7" man's man wearing a single white terry cloth jumpsuit. And I ran my happy ass over there and rubbed my head all over him, hoping he would never get that stain out and have to remember me for the rest of his life. And that was before I started to pass out and the ambulance came.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, and then the next day they're like, my parents were like, "Sparky, they want to reshoot, they'll recast." I'm like, uh-huh. And they, "Well, what do you think?" And I'm like, "Let them recast. We're 5 days into shooting. It's only going to put them 5 days behind on a 10-day shoot. Not my problem. Sorry, I got 20-something stitches on my head." So they decided not to recast. And if you ever see this episode, you got to watch it after the whole fall scene. They cut hair. So I had this bandage, like this. I had stitches in my head. They cut hair off the back of my head and glued it to the front. So my hairline went brown. Like people aren't going to notice that, right? I'm like, where's the suspension of disbelief now? So we finished the shoot. Got it done.
Okay, that's unbelievable. I mean,
really is.
It's true. It is.
No, I'm not saying it's
Yeah.
literally unbelievable, but
Yeah, I
I
know.
can't fathom.
Buddy,
And that's
well-
I think it was pretty unusual too, because I know people today call them studio teachers, but they were actually called welfare workers.
Yeah, they were listed seriously. So your social worker on the set.
Yeah, and not their fault if they weren't informed either
No.
about exposure, because
No, it was Marge
any of them,
Glickman.
especially Portia, they'd be right there going, "Hey, time out. Okay, what's going to happen here?" And assess the situation to make sure you are protected.
Yeah, they did that totally off the book. No one knew anything about it other than the people who were doing it. It wasn't unusual to have a stunt coordinator if you're doing a fall. And you know who my stunt double was? Bobby Porter.
Oh,
Nicest guy ever, right?
He's a sweetheart. He was mine too. He was mine too. Did a lot of work with him.
I did a lot of work with him. Yeah, and the thing was, they kept the shot of me getting blown up, and then they just cut to him. He was on screen for 10 seconds, and it's like, was that all really worth it at the end of the day?
Bobby Porter was, he was great.
Marge Glickman was my studio teacher that day, and I don't know if you remember her. Way over the top studio teacher. She was lit on that one.
Well, that's why I'm surprised that explosion thing happened, because I did one thing where I was up 30 feet on a beam stuck. It was a Adam 12 episode. Which just shows you that I am 97 years old. So, and remember Dick Wicklund?
No.
Oh, okay. He was a welfare worker, studio teacher. He was the guy I would request all the time because he was great, and I really learned a lot from him. I enjoyed schooling the 3 hours.
Was that the guy who was a merchant marine when he was younger? As a young man, he was a merchant marine because he used to teach me knots.
Perhaps.
I think that was him.
Yeah, Dick Wicklund. His wife at the time, Betty Wicklund, was also a studio teacher. But he said, okay, but he's going up there with me. So he put a harness and a cable on himself.
Right.
To go up, they didn't just send like a stunt coordinator and Martin Mull or whatever, Kit McCord up there, and
that's amazing support. That's very supportive.
He got up there in a harness and put himself just to make sure. I don't think it's not like it was his job to catch me if I were to fall or anything like that. I had a harness and all that. It was to make sure that up here, I'm a youngster, that up here, he could tell whether the kid's freaking out, whether you need to just let him down and all that stuff. And that's why I'm surprised that pyrotechnic
Nobody knew.
Happened.
Nobody knew.
Incredible.
Because that's where I transitioned. After that accident, I didn't want to work in front of the camera anymore. And luckily, I didn't have to.
So how was it like? I mean, did you just record many episodes in one day and just knock it out?
We do anywhere, 4, 5, 6 in a day. It didn't take long to record them. You read through, you look at the storyboard. They got a storyboard there to give you an idea of action, what's going on. And you read through it once, and then you record.
Did you record with the other cast members, or each one just?
Yes. 99.9% of my experience was with all cast members. Anything Hanna-Barbera was with all cast members. I did a couple of things that were individual, and I don't know if Moosie's ever worked with an old director named Dick Basusto, but so every line has a number. Every line on the page has a number. So if there's a blip, like, they want to do a pickup afterwards, they'll go, okay, go to line 46. We're going to redo that one. Okay, go to line 92. All right. So I worked with this guy. He did Space Ace when I was doing the voice of Dexter on Space Ace. Mm-hmm. He slated every line. Okay, try to wrap your head around that. Line 1, take 1. Line 1, take 2.
Wow.
Line 2, take 1. And it totally kills the dynamic because we're all in the same room at the same time. And there's now no true dynamic taking you from one, line to the next line to the next scene. It didn't happen that way. He slated everything individually, and it took literally 4 hours to record a 7 or 8 minute cartoon.
He was catering to the technical part of it. When you slate, you can go right to, the take that was saved and all that stuff, but not understanding the performer's end of it. Like, just keep it rolling, and Sparky will do, 4 alts, different ways.
I had worked with him before, and he didn't do it that way, which is what really surprised me. my absolute favorite is anything live. I like being in front of a live audience.
Mhm.
Anything I could get on a live show, I was happy. It just made me that extra piece of happy. Other than that, cartoons are easy. Cartoons are quick. It doesn't matter if you have a broken arm or zits. you know, and
Yeah.
sorry, that's a serious thing when you're a child actor.
Sure.
Yeah.
I never had braces. My mother refused to give me braces because you can't get a job. Now my teeth are in pretty good shape, but if they weren't,
Well,
Yeah.
just want to go back to your credit. I mean, I
Okay.
was talking beforehand. You've worked with so many legends also. I mean, that we haven't got to it. Like I was looking like Steve Martin, like, Don Bluth and Scatman Crothers. So
Yeah.
are there any moments from any of them that really stand out in your career that just really pop?
Okay, I did. Remember Western Town at Paramount, Moose?
Yes.
Okay, so we're doing. I think they had many different movies, but I think Coffeeville was was what it got sold under finally, and it was Richard Widmark and Barbara Rush. Okay, so I have two stories from the same group, the same scene I was filming. I was absolutely sick as a dog. I had a cold. I had a horrible cold, and I'm allergic to everything Old West: horses, hay, alfalfa. I'm allergic to it, like deathly allergic. So we're in this barn filming, standing in hay. So I mean, I'm already behind the 8 ball. So Barbara Rush comes walking in there to do the scene with me, and she's like, "Can you people not see that this child is ill? Get a heater, get a blanket, get something." And sure enough, she raised hell until they tried to make me more comfortable. I appreciated that very much. The funny part was, I had never played horseshoes before. I did not know what horseshoes was. I had never even seen a horseshoe. I didn't know. So we're supposed to be, me and Richard Widmark are supposed to be playing horseshoes. So they hand me this horseshoe and they go, "Okay, hold it like this and try and toss it over there." Yeah, somebody had to throw themselves in front of the camera because I went straight for the lens, straight for it. I let that thing go, whew, and I see this guy just full on, doing the Superman flop in front of the lens of the camera to block that horseshoe. And then I hear this, "Child wrangler, teach this kid how to play horseshoes." Didn't know.
Child wrangler.
I know. You probably never heard that term. I got it every once in a while.
Oh yeah, I heard that term.
Yeah,
I
child
heard
wrangler.
it. I actually also heard. So you remember Tiger Williams? This
Haven't
was
thought
actually
about that
more.
one.
This was more on the humorous side. The director said, "Moosie and Tiger. I don't know if I need a school teacher or a animal wrangler." There were wranglers. It sounds like the experience you just spoke about
Yeah.
was like, grown-ups not really understanding that this is a kid here. You
Yeah.
fix this,
I know, somebody fix this, right?
fix this.
Yeah.
Young human-looking thing. It's so bizarre.
But to get to your question, when I did Man with Two Brains, so the whole shtick was going through puberty and like that, and then my character grew a mustache and beard, right? So they send me down to Stan Winston in San Diego. They do the whole mask thing. I perfect my German accent. Stan Jones from Richie Rich helped me with, and not only did I get overdubbed, the whole like shooting out the thing, and then that was it. I didn't get too close to Steve Martin and Kathleen Turner. They were very cool to me in a tangential kind of thing. They didn't avoid me, but I was definitely not allowed. I felt within a certain radius of where they were. It was kind of like, secondary actors out. The thing about having a named role, Bellboy, didn't have a named role. So when you get a named role,
Wow.
you tend to get a little more, you get a credit and everything, Bellboy number 2 or whatever I was. I don't know.
What role or roles do you have in your head, if any, that you really wanted? And because I know that you and I are the same, and like, you get it, you get it. You don't get it, you don't get it. But once in a while, there was something like, I just really want to do that.
Okay.
What'd you miss out
I'm
on?
sure, I bet you read for it, was Airplane. And I made the 5th callback for Airplane in both roles.
David Hollander?
I read for both the David Hollander role and the Rossi Harris role.
Oh, and Rossi.
One messing with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and the one working with Michelle Stacy going, "I like my coffee black like my man thing."
Yes.
Okay. 5th callback. After the 5th callback, they got to start paying you to show up for an interview.
Sure.
You get 5 for free. At least back in the day, that's how it worked. I didn't get it. I'm not sure I had it. That one, and the other one I went on the 5th callback for was the original Vacation that went to I can't think of his name.
Michael Hall.
Anthony Michael Hall.
Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
I went to him. So, it's like I was right there, and those are the two. I wanted the David Hollander role because I had worked with Michelle Stacy a half a dozen times.
Yeah.
We worked together a bunch. And I thought the script for Vacation was hysterical, and I wanted to be part of it.
And you were right. It was a funny film.
Yeah.
It worked. You would have been great in it, of course, and which is, it makes sense. You were right down there. I actually picture you in Airplane, as you say it, with Michelle Stacy. I picture you guys doing that scene together because I know your work.
I always got that smart kid kind of role, stick glasses on him, and now he's brilliant kind of thing. And
but
that was just right where that was my wheelhouse. That was where
you actually had a grown up delivery to you when you were a child. You can't just put glasses on a kid and he seems like he's ahead of his time. You actually were, your old soul or however you want to say it. But yeah.
Well, you just mentioned you previously mentioned the Hollywood show, and I saw a lot of pictures of you online actually with it. So
oh no, really?
Yes, I did. I saw a lot of people posting it. So, including Wesley Ure posted with you there. So, how was it overall, and how do you? So, this is your first one. Do you plan on doing more now?
I don't know. See, okay, because I got to open this box if that's where you want to. If that's the question you want, I'm not. As I've gotten older, I'm not totally against having these conversations because I think people need to learn what's at risk. Mm-hmm. My experience in working was not overwhelmingly positive the entire time. I had, snippets of good days. Sure, I have a good shoot or I'd have a good day or whatever. Me working was not an option. It was a requirement in my house. It was not fun. It was work. So my mom was physically abusive, and that is how she kept me in line. So, and I'm not the only one that have to. Claudia was in the same boat as I was in. Our moms went to the same mom school, essentially. So the questions and stuff that people would ask me over the weekend caused me to open boxes that I'm not always ready to open. Because this was my coping mechanism when I was working. If there was a crisis, if there was drama with me and my mom or whatever, I put it in a box because I got to go to work. And after a while, I kind of forgot it was in the box, and I didn't worry about it anymore. Well, then my son started hitting certain age benchmarks. Oh, it's his 8th birthday. That was a big birthday for me. I remember I was filming this, and oh crap, that's when that happened. Yeah, and I would have these different issues. My mom passed away in 2009. We were never able to iron out our issues. We were never able to try and get that squared away. So overall, was the Hollywood show a good experience? Absolutely. I was flattered by the how fans received me. Some of them had some very personal, very dear things to say that I was like overwhelmed, very touched by. But it's talking about a lot of memories that aren't so great. And so my brother, he has 2 kids. One of his kids had some interest in working, and he goes, "What do you think?" And I go, "Well, here's what I think. Let him turn 18. Don't do it. Let him turn 18. If he wants to move to New York and try to do it, I would support that 100%. Between now and 18, community theater works just fine to get your feet wet. You don't have to get paid right now. Be a kid, because you'll never be able to be a kid again, and you're kind of selling your kidhood right now."
That's pretty much in line with what Claudia felt too when I spoke to her, is that not to do it, to advise parents not to put their kids in there. And so that is how you feel now, is not to let your kids go into
my mother.
Your child.
When my son was young, my mom said, "You're going to have to move back to Los Angeles so you can get him, working." And I'm like, fat chance of that ever happening. It's not going to happen. And her comment was, "If you don't do it, he's going to hate you forever. Once he figures it out, he's going to hate you forever." And I told her I was willing to take that chance, because people who don't do it, unless you're the one whose ass is in front of the camera, people who don't do it don't know. They can say they know, but they don't know. And, we talked about it earlier. It's like the teasing aside, the jerk teachers aside, the losing out on the childhood experiences that you're never going to get again. all that aside, at the end of the day, it's not Hollywood fun. It's Hollywood work. They don't pay you to come to the set and screw around. They're paying, time is money, film is money. At least back then, before it was digital and much cheaper now, I imagine. But back then, there were days when we were filming Bad News Bears, they ran out of film. It's like, okay, well, I guess we're done now. We're out of film for the day, out on location somewhere. So this is a business. Make no mistake about it. And generally, children are commodities. Rarely do you get a Macaulay Culkin or somebody who's like can demand so much that literally they can do their 2 or 3 movies and hang it up, and call it a career at that point. The people who are doing the bread and butter stuff like I did, everybody wants what they want from you today.
Yep. Well, you said it. It's a business. And Marcus, I'm sorry. I didn't know this. I'm sorry to hear about your experiences.
Hey, the whole reason I do these, it helps me. And I hope if anybody's out there wondering if this is something they want to do, I hope it educates them. Mm-hmm. You need somebody on your side. You need an advocate that you're not related to that is taking care of you to make sure you're okay at the end of the day. And that's something that we never had.
Yeah.
You're supposed to be our parents.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I had a positive childhood and positive experiences, and I still didn't want to I still never encouraged my son to be
right.
So I get it. It does prepare people when they grow up, prepares you for rejection, because even if you're a really good, talented person, you're only going to get 1 out of every 20 or more, so you just kind of know that, not to take it personally, or maybe I need to try harder next time, or just not, it's not the end of the world. It's just, it's rejection.
Got to go back to the drawing board.
It does, It does prepare you for that a little bit, but, well, anyway, and I hope this is therapeutic. You're recent coming out to speak about it, whether it's Hollywood show, whether it's here today or with anybody. I hope that somehow, that,
what
helps
my wife explained to me going to the Hollywood show is that the people who I'm going to be interacting with enjoyed what I did. And they want to talk about the good stuff about it. And that's how I approached it. And that's how I dealt with it. All that other stuff is on me, and I talk about it in venues like this because I think it's an important thing to get out there, that it isn't just happiness and life ever after or happily ever after. You know what I mean? It isn't always like that.
I'm just going to guess on its face that it's a really good thing for you. That
I enjoyed it. I had a good time. And the people I was sitting with Johnny and Scott from Sigmund, and we had a great time talking about the old days.
What's on tap right now? What's going on in the future?
I retired in 2022.
Cool.
I took my SAG retirement at 55 and a half, and I worked at the local hospital here for almost 30 years. And I run a tax business on the side. I do taxes. Taxes make me warm and fuzzy.
Right.
I don't know why. They just do.
Yeah.
So, my wife's still working at the hospital. She's a physical therapist there. And a couple more years, hopefully she can retire too.
Before we let you go, I wanted to add to the chorus there. And I said this to you when we first corresponded. You really were like a big part of my childhood as far as roles. There were so many roles that you were in, which I still remember very fondly. In the shows that they're so, for whatever it's worth, like I said, I was thrilled that you were agreed to come on because of that.
You're very kind, and I appreciate that. And it does make me feel good knowing that, some of the work I did really did make it to people and they enjoyed it. So it would be impossible for me to say that doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel great, and I'm flattered. The other stuff is just the collateral damage that comes with, I don't know, when, we were East LA folks when I was growing up until I started working. And then, family money, it just changed. Everything changed.
Yep. Well, listen, you're not alone. You pick up the phone at any time. Yeah. And, we'll just trade war stories. Nah, that's nothing. What happened to me was,
I know, right?
I just wanted to real quickly put a button on the whether people put their kids into the business for the right reasons or not. The great Judy Savage, Brad Savage's mom, she owned her own agency. She once told me, if you have friends who have kids, they're trying to put their kids in a business, give me a call and I'll set it up and, all that. What she does is when the parents come in with the kids to maybe be signed by this agent, she's like, she does a thank you for coming. Okay. Would you mind stepping out? I'd like to speak to little Bobby alone, without the parents. The first thing she says or asks is, do you want to be doing this?
Mm-hmm.
And in the experience I have with some friends and the kid went, and the kid was adorable and probably would have worked it all like crazy. And Judy went, thank you, Bobby. And then
hard pass, Mom.
I'm not signing that kid. Like she goes right to the child first without any pressure from the parents in the room. And that more, I wish more people were like that. I hope more people are like that today. So
I really hope I don't come off so bitter and so angry, because I'm not. It's taken me a long time to kind of process all of this, especially now my son's going to be 23. So processing it as he was getting older, at least in the time that it took, worked out for me. I think when I was younger, in my early 20s, I was an angry young man. I was not a happy guy when I came to thinking about these things. I'm not that guy anymore, but I think what needs to happen is there should be some sort of parental vetting process, to make sure that everybody is mentally healthy enough to do this properly. Because you need an advocate. A child needs an advocate.
I never apologize for being honest. If that was your story, if that was your experience, and this is your life, people ask you.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Going back to fans, is there a way for fans to follow you on social media?
Somebody put a Sparky Marcus, aka Marcus Issoglio, Facebook page that somehow I wound up administering somehow. A very nice person. Thank you very much. And you're welcome to reach out through there. I get a lot of
I'm jumping on that
Facebook
right
friend
now.
requests, and I will. My question when it's somebody I don't know is, do we know each other? And then I get I was a fan of your work, blah blah blah. And I always say thank you very much. I don't have a problem being Facebook friends with anybody who wants to be nice to me. So I don't have a problem with that. My phone number's out there. I have a business, and that's my cell phone number. So there you go. And I started getting phone calls from people, and it's like, okay, that's a little bit too close. A little bit too close. You want to reach out to me on the internet or something? Fine, I'm good with that. Yeah, but my time is my family time is my family time too.
So I just joined your Facebook page.
I'm going to have to do that as well.
And it says that my membership is pending, and we're not hanging up until you approve it. Wow, this was great.
You're pretty sketch there, Moosie. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I would do a little bit of background work on myself.
Right. Well, Moosie, it was a pleasant surprise to see you. I didn't expect you. This is great.
Well, yeah. We don't want to get into a long story now. We're wrapping it up, but this is a joy. I've been watching this for obvious reasons. It's very interesting. Jonathan and Ike have been great. I've always been a fan of Ike Eisenman as a human being, and also as an actor.
No, he was bigger than life, man. He was
yeah. And so since I enjoy the show so much, I found Ike. I tied him up, and he's in the back now.
Yeah, he's in the back. Yeah. Throw him a cookie once in a while.
Appreciate you coming on. Thank you. It's like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to speak with you. And anytime you want to come back, you're welcome on.
Yeah, anytime you're willing to have me.
Thank you, friend.
Well, again, this has been Pop Culture Retro. I'm Jonathan Rosen with Moosie Drier. And again, a very special thanks to Marcus Issoglio. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Thank you for tuning in to Pop Culture Retro, where no one was hurt during the making of this podcast. Listening to this podcast just makes you really cool.